everybody. Coke Man 250 here. I want to talk to you a little bit about common sense and the lack thereof. You know, common sense ain't that common anymore in America. And the thing is, the people who have common sense, we need to be passing on common sense. And I include myself into the common sense realm because I feel like I have common sense. And most of the people, you know, that I know on YouTube have common sense. And what we've gotten to, though, is we've gotten to a place in time where common sense hasn't been passed on. And I don't know what the deal is with that and how it ever, there's a gap there. And it may be because I spent a lot of time with older people when I was young. My grandparents' age people. Spent a lot of time with grandparents. Spent a lot of time with older people. You know, when my mom and dad, and I don't talk about my mom and dad a lot, and there's not a reason why I don't talk about them, because my parents were great parents. They're still great parents. My dad, I can call him at the drop of a hat, and almost all the time he'll come help me with anything. And he's been such a great dad. My mom's been such a great mom. She's very loving and caring. You know, growing up, they always told me positive things. They always filled me with positivity. I can do anything I want when I grow up. I can be anything I want to be. Anything you set your mind to, you can do. They filled me with positivity when I was a young kid. But I spent more time with my parents as I grew up. And the reason was because my parents worked, you know, all the time when I was a kid. And so I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. I talk about my grandpa a lot, and that's because I spent a lot of time with him. You know, that's not to say my dad never spent time with me. I got the feeling over the last few videos that I've talked about my grandpa, I started thinking, you know, I don't talk about my parents enough, but my parents were great parents. I'm an only child, and they were great parents. I mean, I'm serious. You know, my dad would take me to the monster truck races and monster truck rally. He would take me to things on the weekend, rodeos and stuff. He did things with me. We'd go four-wheeler riding, you know, and or three-wheeler riding back then. And I spent a lot of time with my parents on the weekends. But, you know, they worked through the week, and they worked long hours. There were times they worked 80 hours a week during harvest time at a rice mill. So they worked lots of overtime, you know. And they took care of me and raised me very well. And I don't not talk about my parents because they weren't a part of my life, because they were a huge part of my life and still are. My parents live about 10 miles away from me, and I see my parents several times a week. Sit next to my dad every Sunday morning in Sunday school. You know, that's something a lot of people can't say. And you know, the Lord has truly blessed me with the ability to be able to sit next to my dad in Sunday school. So, you know, I felt like that I have not talked about my parents enough on here because they're such good people. And I know once in a while my mom watches my videos, and I don't want them to ever get the impression that I took their time for granted and that they weren't good parents. They were, I promise you. But I did spend a lot of time with my grandparents, and the reason why is because my grandpa owned businesses. You know, he done things. He was retired from the military after about 26 years in the Air Force, 4 years in the Army, and 4 years in the Marines. But he retired from the Air Force, was his last 26 years. And so after that, he started doing his own businesses. He owned a little restaurant. He owned a cabinet shop. He was a contractor. He was a locksmith in the town. He was a jack of all trades. If you needed something done in the town, my grandpa was the man to do it. He worked on all of his own vehicles, built his house, plumbed his house, did all the electrical work. So he did it all, you know. But he had the time, or he had the ability to take me to work with him because he owned the businesses. So that's why I spent a lot of time with him growing up. And maybe being with older people and around older people, it gave me a better sense it gave me better common sense, but it also gave me a better sense, maybe a work ethic. A lot of people never see, like my kids never see me at work. They see me when I get home, and they never see me when I'm at work. And all that time, they miss out on seeing me work. So it's like, I seen my grandpa work, and I seen what he done, and it had an impact on me growing up. But common sense part of it was, I don't think common sense, I don't think it comes natural. I think common sense is something that's taught, in my opinion. And it's through wisdom. It's through situations, being in situations, going through situations, and learning the knowledge to not make the same mistake twice. But I think if you don't pass on your common sense, and what I say is common sense, there's things that we take for granted that we know, and it's things that some people don't know, and sometimes it strikes me as weird that somebody don't know that, especially somebody that's older than me. And it's, it doesn't happen often, because I am actually surrounded with a lot of people who are grounded people, good Christian people, have lots of common sense, do lots of things on their own. But I see it in our younger generation, to where it's just certain things that, I don't know, it's hard to understand. But one of the things you see on TV, especially right now, one of the things with the riots, the riots and the loitering, whatever you want, protesting is what they're calling it. Common sense tells you that you don't go burn down and tear up your own neighborhoods. And, that's just common sense. Why would you tear up the local gas station when that's like the only place you can go get gas or get something quick, I don't get it, And there's so many other things, and there's so much stuff when you turn on the news that these people don't have any common sense. Common sense tells you that you need to have stricter questions asking people, do you want to do any harm if you come into this country? And that's common sense. Common sense tells you that's a question that needs to be asked. Well, if you don't think that question needs to be asked, then, in my opinion, you don't have any common sense. Because why would you allow somebody in that wants to do harm to you? Yeah, they could lie and say no, but at least ask the question. And don't, I don't know, there's just a lot of people that for some reason they don't have no common sense, and they just go out there and they just think that everything with people with common sense does is wrong. And I don't know, it amazes me the lack of common sense, and it amazes me the lack of people understanding that every action has a reaction, and that the lack of action will also have a reaction. And the reaction to lack of action is usually more harmful than the reaction to an action. That's a lot of action in there, I know. But it's something that's been on me for a while in my mind, and I don't know if common sense is the real word for what I'm looking for. But when you're doing things and tearing stuff up that you need, to me that's just lack of common sense. But anyway, I may have confused myself on this one, but I tried to put it out there as best as I could say it, and give you a little background on where I'm at and the way I think about things sometimes. I'm very frugal, And it's because I seen my grandpa in many businesses, and I never seen my grandpa need any money. But there again, my grandpa never had luxury items either. He only bought one new vehicle pretty much his whole life. He always bought used vehicles. He always worked on those vehicles when they tore up. If it broke, he didn't go trade it in and get something new. He fixed it, and he worked on it, and he worked on it, and he kept fixing it until it cost more to keep it going than it was worth. And then common sense tells you if you're putting more into something than you're getting out, it's time to switch to something different. So it's that's kind of where I get my mindset, I believe, and also how I look at common sense and where it comes from. So pass on your common sense, very simple common knowledge. Pass it on to your kids and your grandkids, because they need to know that when they get out in the real world, that they need to know things. And just the simplest of things, like if your washing machine breaks, there's probably only about couple handfuls of parts on the thing. I know lots of people, when their washer breaks, they call somebody. I put a $60 part on my washing machine, and it took 5 minutes as an exaggeration. My dryer quit working. Instead of calling somebody, I put a $10 part on it, and it was 4 bolts. It took me every bit of less than 5 minutes. And that's common sense, in my opinion. But pass that on. Pass it on to somebody. If you don't have kids or grandkids, or they're all grown and gone, pass it on to somebody. We can't let common sense be a lost art and just doing for yourself, because a lot of common sense is doing for yourself. How much money are you going to save by doing that for yourself? Common sense tells me if that guy can do it, I can probably do it myself. I could take something somewhere. I could throw a lot of parts on a vehicle, finding the thing that's wrong with it, before I pay somebody a couple $100 to work on it. A couple $100 worth of parts, it's probably something that need to be switched out anyway. So common sense tells me that I can take bolts off just as easy as the next man. This is Coke Man 250 from the land of the free and the home of the brave. God bless everybody. And remember, prep smarter, pray harder.